You know, the Gospels make this incredible claim that one person's life was basically mapped out in detail centuries before it even happened. Today, we're going to dig into the 25 ancient prophecies that make up what's called a prophetic fingerprint and see exactly how they build that case.
So let's just start with the big question, right? Is it even possible for dozens of really specific predictions written hundreds of years apart by different people to all point to one single individual? That's the core idea we're going to explore.
Well, according to the Gospels, the answer is a huge yes, and it all boils down to this number, 25. The whole argument is that these 25 specific points, when you put them all together, create a pattern so unique it's like an identifier, something that's just impossible to fake.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at what this prophetic fingerprint idea is all about. Then we'll follow the trail of these prophecies exactly as they unfold, starting with his origin, moving through his ministry, then into his final days, and landing on the single most important claim of them all.
So the main argument here isn't really about any single prophecy by itself. No, it's about the entire collection. The idea is that these 25 points, taken together, create a pattern that's so detailed and so specific that it's just like a fingerprint, something impossible to accidentally replicate.
And just to be super clear, this is where we're getting our information. This whole explainer is based on the lists of Old Testament prophecies that the Gospel writers themselves point to. We didn't make up this list. We're simply walking through the case that they present.
All right, let's dive in. We'll start at the very beginning. This first set of prophecies is all about his ancestry, his birth, and where he would grow up. The absolute foundational details of his life.
The blueprint for his origin kicks off with some incredibly specific details. His family line had to trace all the way back to King David. The way he was born was specified, from a virgin. Even the exact town was named Bethlehem. The prophecies also pointed to a temporary move to Egypt before he was eventually raised in the region of Galilee, specifically in Nazareth.
And this right here shows you the method they used in the Gospels. The claim that he was born in Bethlehem isn't just thrown out there as a biographical fact. It's deliberately and explicitly linked back to a specific verse in the book of Micah, a text written centuries earlier.
Okay, let's move on to the next phase of this blueprint. After his origins, the prophecies shift focus to his public life and his work, describing what he'd do, how he would teach, and, maybe most importantly, how people were going to react to him.
Now, this next set of predictions is fascinatingly diverse. It starts with a forerunner, like a herald announcing his arrival. It defines his whole mission as one of spiritual freedom, a concept called Jubilee. And it even specifies that his message wasn't just for the Jewish people, but for everyone, the Gentiles. His work would be all about healing, and he'd have a very specific teaching style, using stories or parables. But then, there's a huge twist.
And this just brilliantly shows the central tension in these ancient texts. On the one hand, he's foretold to be this incredible teacher, speaking in stories, just like it says in Psalm 78. But on the other hand, a different psalm predicts he'll be the stone the builders reject, that he'll be disbelieved and cast aside by the religious leaders, a teacher who wouldn't be listened to by the people in power.
This brings us to the final, and let's be honest, the most dramatic part of the prophetic blueprint, the events all around his arrest, his suffering, and his death, what's often called his passion.
The details in this final stage, they get incredibly specific. The prophecies describe him coming into Jerusalem being celebrated like a king, only to be betrayed by a close friend. They even predict the exact price of that betrayal, 30 pieces of silver. The details of his suffering are laid out too, being offered vinegar and gall, and even soldiers gambling for his clothes.
I mean, just look at the precision here. It's not just he'll be betrayed. It's a betrayal by a friend for a specific amount of money. That's a detail that connects prophecies from both Zechariah and the Psalms. This layering of detail is really a cornerstone of the whole case.
And the list of predictions keeps going, right through his final moments. It foretells a wound from a piercing in his side, but then it makes this really strange claim that, unlike most people who were crucified, not a single one of his bones would be broken. It says he would die between two criminals, that his very last words were predicted, and that he would be buried in a rich man's tomb.
And once again, you can see these physical details are directly tied back to ancient texts. The piercing is linked to Zechariah, while that really unusual detail about his unbroken bones is connected all the way back to the instructions for the very first Passover lamb in the book of Exodus.
So after his origin, his ministry, and his death, we finally arrive at the last, and by far the most consequential prophecy of them all, the one that, according to the Gospel writers, makes sense of everything that came before it.
This is it, the capstone of the entire prophetic fingerprint. The claim is that after fulfilling every single other prophecy about his life and his death, he would be resurrected on the third day, an event the Gospels connect to texts in Genesis, the Psalms, and Hosea.
So to bring it all home, the argument isn't about any one prediction. It's about the cumulative weight of all 25. The core claim is that, hey, maybe you could explain away one or two of these points as a coincidence, but the convergence of so many specific, independent details on one person creates a prophetic fingerprint that is, they argue, statistically impossible to forge.
And that leaves us with the final question. Is this list a genuine ancient blueprint for a life that unfolded exactly as it was written down? Or is it all a collection of coincidences, clever pattern matching, and interpretations put together after the fact? That's the real question at the heart of this prophetic fingerprint.